Argenti's Lightcone is looking pretty good, but is it really that much better than the other options that we have in the game, especially some of the more easily accessible 4-star options? So I'm kind of curious if Genius's Repose, the Seriousness of Breakfast, the Battlepass Lightcone, Today is Another Peaceful Day, and even Himiko's signature Lightcone are going to be able to outperform Argenti's Lightcone. And so in today's video, I'm going to take a deep dive look into the differences between these Lightcones using some calculations that I did based off of the build for my Argenti. My Argenti build is nothing too crazy. I think it's at a level that is achievable for most players in the game. And so, of course, some disclaimers before we start this deep dive into the differences between these Lightcones. We are considering basically Argenti's solo damage, so no buffs from teammates such as Ting Yun or Hua Hua or any MOC/simulated universe buffs. All Lightcones and relics used in this video are going to also be at maximum power unless otherwise stated. And so with that said, these are the stats on the Argenti that I'm going to use to calculate the differences between these Lightcones. These stats are based off of a max level Argenti using a signature Lightcone and the 4-piece boxing set. Of course, when we replace the Lightcone with other ones to do comparisons, then his attack stat will change. And so with this build, his attack is going to reach about 3,139. His crit damage is 175.8%, and his crit rate is 50%. This is achieved by using a crit damage body, a physical damage planar sphere, and attack percentage link rope. With the planar sphere, his physical damage bumps up to 63.2%. This is due in part to his traces and also 10% from the boxing set. In addition to reach this, I added a little bit of substats from relics, very achievable for most people in the game. 15% extra attack, 12% extra crit rate, and 25% extra crit damage. He is also using the Inert Celsodo planar ornament set, which gives extra ultimate damage and an extra 8% crit rate. We're able to reach 50% crit rate once we hit maximum self-cultivation stacks. The comparisons that I'm about to talk about were calculated on a 3-turn rotation. So this is 3 skills plus his 180 cost ultimate onto a single target. It also assumes that all 6 extra hits will hit that one target, even though in practice, if there's multiple enemies, this is unlikely to happen. Now make sure you've watched the beginning of this video and you understood how these calculations came to be before you make a comment on the power level between these different Lightcones. Because at the end of the video, we're going to turn everything on its head and you'll really start to understand the intricacies of comparing his Lightcone to the other available options. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with an S5 Breakfast. It is actually an incredibly underwhelming Lightcone for Argenti. An S5 Breakfast will increase the wearer's damage by 24%, and then for every enemy defeated by the wearer's attack increases by 8% up to 3 times, so 24% extra attack at maximum power. Now, out of his best options, this one is easily the worst. When compared to an S1 Genius's Repose, it's only better by about 6%, and we're comparing an S5 to an S1. Genius's Repose is really similar, except that it will increase the wearer's attack by 32% at S5 and crit damage by 48% after they defeat an enemy for 3 turns. At S1, the attack increase is 16% and the crit damage increase is 24%. So at this S1 level, it's only, again, 6% worse than an S5 Breakfast. And then if we were to compare it to an S5 Genius's Repose, then Genius's Repose is actually 8.7% better than an S5 Breakfast. Now, a Breakfast S5 compared to the Battlepass Lightcone at S1, turns out the Battlepass Lightcone is better by 2%, approximately. And then if you have an S5 Battlepass Lightcone, then it's better than an S5 Breakfast by about 12%. I'm actually quite surprised by this result. I thought an S5 Breakfast would do a lot better. Now, if we were to compare the two better 4-star options, S5 Genius's Repose and the Battlepass Lightcone S5, the difference between the two is 3.5% in favor of the Battlepass Lightcone. It should also be noted that Genius's Repose takes a little bit to ramp up because you have to defeat at least one enemy to get the crit damage boost. Now, I also looked into Himiko's signature Lightcone. I looked at the damage at maximum power with 5 enemies on the field and also with 2 enemies. Since the Battlepass Lightcone was the best 4-star option, I will use that to compare it to Himiko's Lightcone, Night on the Milky Way. Night on the Milky Way is that for every enemy on the field, the wearer's attack will increase by 9% up to 5. When an enemy is inflicted with Weakness Break, the damage dealt by the wearer increases by 30% for 1 turn. Himiko's Lightcone does take a little bit to ramp up to its full power, but we're going to assume that the Lightcone is at full power for these comparisons. Night on the Milky Way is 4% worse when there's 2 enemies on the field compared to the Battlepass Lightcone. With 5, Night on the Milky Way is 6% better. So definitely your 2 best options are the Battlepass Lightcone and Night on the Milky Way if you happen to pull it. Now let's go ahead and compare his signature Lightcone to Night on the Milky Way, the Battlepass Lightcone, and Genius's Repose. Now, first off, Argenti's Lightcone is going to increase his crit damage by 36% and then increase his ultimate damage based upon his maximum energy. And since he has 180 energy, we multiply that by 0.36% and we get an extra 64.8% extra damage on his ultimate. And at the end of the day, his signature Lightcone almost always pulls ahead. So versus Himiko's Lightcone at maximum power, his signature Lightcone is about 3.8% better. Versus an S5 Battlepass Lightcone, his signature Lightcone is 9.7% better. And then versus Genius's Repose S5, his signature Lightcone is 13.2% better. His ultimate is just so incredibly strong that it pulls ahead of all of the other Lightcone options. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind. Since Argenti's skill is an AoE attack, and in my calculations, I only calculate the damage to a single target. This means that every other Lightcone besides his signature Lightcone can do better if there's more than 1 target on the field, and especially if there's 5. And so when you consider that, things start to change. If you're hitting 5 enemies every single time you use your skill for my theoretical 3-turn rotation, then the Battlepass Lightcone is very close, and Himiko's Lightcone actually surpasses his signature Lightcone. However, having 5 enemies on the field for longer than 3 turns is rare because they're usually going to be trash mobs and they're most likely going to die before you can get that many skills off. Then in that case, his signature Lightcone is definitely going to win out. And here's a quick chart to just illustrate that very quickly. I'm not really going to go in too much depth on this because it's more of a niche situation. I think at the end of the day, his signature Lightcone is definitely going to be his best option. So what do you guys think of Argenti's Lightcone? Let me know down in the comments. It seems like it could have been a pretty generic Lightcone, but it works perfectly for Argenti because it scales off of max energy, which Argenti has the highest in the game currently. If another erudition character comes out with a very high energy cost, then this Lightcone may very well be usable on them. Until next time, make sure to check out some of the other content on the channel. I have some generic guides as well as a analysis video for Argenti's full kit and Hanya as well.